The remake has become increasingly popular in recent years. Hollywood movies have always drawn inspiration or recycled ideas from films from bygone eras, but now it seems barely a month goes by that I don't hear of another film that's being updated for modern audiences. Hollywood has decided to remake or reboot many of the movies that I enjoyed growing up, and it's clear that the rise of identity politics is influencing much of our modern entertainment. The results, though, are often underwhelming. The pitfalls are many: deviate too far from the original story, or offer a completely reimagined experience, especially for the purposes of politically correct revisionism, and audiences can be extremely unforgiving. Similarly, gaming has also seen its share of remakes. Although a much younger industry, as it also matures, this is perhaps inevitable. Certain titles resonate with gamers and are so successful that as technology advances, developers see the commercial opportunity presented by allowing a new generation of gamers to get in on the act, while also fanning the flames of nostalgia in existing fans. Dead Space, Demon's Souls, The Last of Us, and Resident Evil 2 are just some of the titles which boast recent remakes which have been critically well received and, crucially, have raked in the cash. Now, because I'm old enough to remember the very first Resident Evil on the PS1, perhaps the first thing that always strikes me when I play one of these games is just how far we've come in terms of graphical prowess and sound design. Few game franchises boast the longevity to invite such a comparison, but the Resident Evil games certainly qualify. The original release in 1996, though admittedly great for its time, was characterised by blocky textures, awkward camera angles, and clunky combat mechanics. None of the ease of character movement or object interaction that we now take for granted can be found here. By modern standards, it's extremely dated. Whatever its limitations, though, it was dripping in atmosphere and tension. The original has itself been remade, and the combination of combat and puzzle solving, which was and still is the basis of Resident Evil's core gameplay, spawned multiple game sequels and movie spin-offs that have kept it firmly in the public's consciousness to this day. I think few will argue that from its outdoor environments to its castle interiors, Capcom's latest remake, Resident Evil 4, never looks anything less than stunning. On the 4K OLED that served as my window to its blood-soaked world, character models and environments have new life breathed into them. Sound design is equally worthy of praise. Chainsaws howl, doors creak, and the cries of tortured souls echo in the night to fill you with dread. This is a richly detailed world which deserves experiencing with the best screen and sound system that you can lay your hands on. The action of Resident Evil 4 plays out like a cross between Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from LA, and a sprinkling of
Roadhouse.
You get the idea. The president's daughter has been kidnapped by cultists, and only one man can save her. But it ain't Snake Plissken. Permanently looking like a man fresh from a cut and blow dry, our main protagonist, Leon S. Kennedy, parries, shoots, slices, and roundhouses his way through hordes of infected. All punctuated with a cocky one-liner for a smooth takedown.
Oh, not bad, right?
Highly trained, confident, and with cheese turned up to the max,
Nighty-night. Nights.
we're treated to a refreshingly unashamed portrayal of the male action hero stereotype. But if it's hard to imagine Leon ordering himself a soy latte anytime soon, the same can't be said for the object of his mission and his companion for much of the game, Ashley, who is, for the most part, completely reliant on Leon to keep her alive.
Your father trusts me. And I need you to trust me too. And do exactly as I say. I'm gonna get you home safe.
Some see Capcom's portrayal of Ashley as a missed opportunity, with Kotaku, yeah, I know, what a surprise, dramatically claiming the Resident Evil 4 remake totally failed Ashley Graham, citing her lack of personality and preoccupation with Leon. If there's a lack of radical change, though, it's surely a decision that betrays the developer's reluctance to stray too far from the original. Kotaku may complain that Ashley is more ghost than woman, but in my view, Capcom have wisely steered clear of applying a modern feminist makeover. As for being rescued by a man, you can forget it.
I don't need a man for that.
What's more concerning, though, is not content with writing new characters and keeping with modern sensibilities. Increasingly, we're seeing a push to erase or reimagine legacy characters who don't fit with the progressive narrative. Every popular character in game and film is now at risk. Females considered problematic are too often reworked in the mold of the strong female character, who basically spend much of their time reminding us that they don't need a man, while of course demonstrating that they're better at everything than all the men around them.
Keep moving.
Yeah, right.
I suspect that if the Resident Evil games were in the hands of a Western developer, that's exactly what you'd be getting by now. But thank God we still have Japanese game developers like Capcom and From Software who just don't buy into this crap. That's not to say that efforts to be more socially conscious haven't been made. Veterans of the original will quickly register that the sexual banter between characters has been reined in. Most notably, perhaps, the absence of a certain ballistics joke made at Ashley's expense.
Small world, eh? Well, I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics, too.
How rude! And I don't believe there's any relevance with my figure and my standing.
Similarly, if any attempt is made to look up Ashley's skirt, yeah, that was a thing in the original, and you'd get a tongue lashing from Ashley if you tried it.
Oh, you pervert!
You will instead now break the fourth wall and stare directly at the camera. Now, as someone who always gets nervous when I hear that a film or game that I love is being remade in this politically correct climate that we live in, I completely understand that despite my view, that there's more than enough charm and retro feel to this remake, provided by cheesy dialogue from Leon and girlish vulnerability from Ashley, but there will be some fans who are unhappy that Capcom has decided to make changes to character interactions. If you're one of those people, then I'll just say spare a thought for fans of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, who have this to look forward to from Disney's upcoming remake.
Fuck.
If dialogue changes prove controversial, I seriously doubt that anyone will find much to complain about in Resident Evil 4's handling of combat. It is superb. Mechanics are intuitively dealt with by the dual sticks of the PS5 controller, and there's enough nuance that it never feels repetitive or dull. Shooting enemies in the arm will cause them to drop their weapon, and critical headshots and perfectly timed parries will open the door to melee attacks. And limbs, heads and torsos are separated from one another in gratifying displays of gore. Overall, getting belligerent with the infected is incredibly satisfying. Leon is given access to a wide array of weapons that can be upgraded throughout, or if you just fancy a change of tool to aid in your negotiations with the locals, trade it in for something else. It will take multiple playthroughs to fully exploit them all, but it all adds to the game's undeniable replay value. Resident Evil 4's blood-drenched encounters are broken up by its puzzles, and here again the game doesn't disappoint, with the exception of one jigsaw-style interaction that I really struggled with. Puzzles are tricky enough to be interesting without ever becoming any real impediment to your progression. I must have spent a good half an hour on that bloody thing though.
Over here, stranger.
Also making a return for the original game was the merchant, who changes location with convenient regularity. Much like the rest of Resident Evil 4's more far-fetched elements, I didn't question how he manages to warp so quickly from location to location, or how he runs a business that's seemingly dependent on a sole customer. What's important is that his presence ensures you'll rarely be without access to his arsenal of weapons and tune-up services. Inventory management, though, is once again a critical element of gameplay, and even though the merchant supplies a variety of case upgrades, storing all the necessary items and ammunition collected by Leon can prove to be tricky.
I'll hand this over when you've got the space.
You son of a... The merchant also offers side quests, which, although largely superfluous, are still fun, and completing them will increase your spending power and trading opportunities. So what's not to like? An additional bonus of your interactions with the merchant is access to a hugely addictive side game, which presents as a shooting gallery, where a decent performance is rewarded with charms that offer some extremely useful benefits. Want 20% reduction in the cost of crafting shotgun ammunition? Or need a discount to be able to afford the exorbitant cost of the rocket launcher? Well, you can earn it here. Seriously, I could have lost hours to this, and probably still will on another playthrough. There's no question in my mind that Resident Evil 4 gets far more right than it does wrong, but it isn't perfect. At the point at which Ashley joins Leon, the game introduces a command system to allow the player to keep Ashley out of harm's way during tough encounters, ordering her to stand back, stay close, or even hide in a locker at one point. Perhaps it was just me, but I found that no matter what command I gave, Ashley has a knack of placing herself in harm's way, typically causing her to be either scooped up by enemies, resulting in the game's end should she get carried too far from Leon, or becoming injured and needing to be revived. Also, the near constant cries of "¿Dónde estás?"
Un forastero!
from infected villagers as Leon enters a new area can start to become a bit repetitive as the game progresses. Voice acting in the game is generally excellent, and perhaps that's why the monotone delivery of the one exception to that, Ada Wong, has come in for some criticism.
The deal was, we get you out of here when you deliver the amber.
It's not exactly riveting stuff. These are small gripes though, in a game which succeeds on so many levels. Resident Evil has a long and celebrated history, and the fourth installment is recognised as a hugely important entry within the series, as the first to ditch the fixed camera perspective preferred by its predecessors in favour of an over-the-shoulder view more consistent with its focus on delivering an action-orientated experience. It set the standard for just about everything that followed in its wake. As a fan of Resident Evil 1 and 2 though, I was a bit sceptical of the departure from the horror contained within the labyrinthine corridors and claustrophobic laboratories that made those experiences so compelling. The recent Resident Evil 2 remake is still pretty fresh in my memory, and the superbly terrifying experience of being stalked by Mr. X is one not easily forgotten.
Jesus Christ!
The boss battles of Resident Evil 4 also offer up some fun encounters, although as antagonists I found Salazar just too hilarious to be intimidating, and Sadler is just too generic to be truly memorable. I might be in the minority, but I've never felt that the survival horror experience was stale and in need of a refresh, and on paper at least, the mix of action and horror that Resident Evil 4 strives for initially struck me as a doomed compromise, offering a diluted experience which wouldn't satisfy fans of either. The shooting gallery and to some extent the merchant's side quests provide at least partial evidence of this. Although undeniably fun, both have the capacity to break the tension, and that's something which the survival horror experience relies upon maintaining. Perhaps it's telling that some of my most enjoyable sections of the game were when playing as the defenseless Ashley, running for my life during the Verdugo boss fight, or the stress-inducing encounters with the seemingly invincible regenerators. The vulnerability you feel during these moments provides the suspense and anxiety that survival horror fans like me crave. Ultimately though, Resident Evil 4 delivers an experience which is every bit as engaging as others I've played, and it's not difficult to see why it's a firm fan favourite. It's a game that, for the most part, successfully manages to integrate action with survival horror and delivers an experience that superbly vindicates Capcom's decision to remake a nearly 20-year-old game. When game development is given the level of love and care that Capcom have exhibited here, I'm really excited to see where they take the series next. And if you haven't played it yet, you're missing out on what will surely be in contention for the best gaming experience of the year.
Hasta luego.